Jim Lattimore, he's always here.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are y'all doing? Bit later start this morning, so
That was helpful.
Excuse me.
nice, nice. All right, I would like to call the meeting to order at 10 o'clock a.m. It's a courtesy to all to ensure that you have silenced your cell phones. Also, would like to remind the directors to turn on and off their microphone each time you speak in order to help with the audio and video recordings. For the record, I'll note that the public meeting notice was properly posted as required by law. The notice of the board meeting is provided to each of the directors. Directors Gary Boren, Mike Fernandez, Helen Jimenez, Jim Lattimore, and Jared Smith indicated they would not be present for the meeting. Everybody? Okay. We've now reached the portion of our meeting where we've set aside time to hear from you, the general public, those interested in providing comments by filling out one of the cards available at the receptionist desk will be called to approach the podium to make their comments at this time. Seeing that no one is wishing to speak, we will move forward onto the agenda. Agenda item 1, report and possible discussion on General Manager CEO report. David Collingsworth, General Manager and CEO. David.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good to have you here. Just a few quick notes. We do have a short agenda today, but we have some items on the agenda of significance. As our meetings pick up later on in the spring and in the summer, that's kind of our busy time for budget and strategic planning and those type of issues. So I'll run through a little bit of that for you. We have more going on at the Brazos River Authority right now than any time in the 28 years that I've been here. One of those projects that we're really happy about that is moving forward is our Taylor Gate replacement project at Lake Limestone. And the reason I bring that up to you this morning, for those of you that are watching online, is because I want to make sure that everyone understands. If you're out on Lake Limestone now, you're going to see construction barges. Soon you'll see cranes. The lake being 2 feet low has nothing to do with our construction project. If Mother Nature will fill the lake up, we'll let it happen. So there are no plans in the future for this construction that's going to last approximately a year for us to have to lower the reservoir or alter our operations because of our project. So we're real excited. Our staff has been down to the warehouses in Houston where our gates are being made and our hoists are being made and everything's moving forward. But if you're out on Lake Limestone now, you will see barges and what's beginning to look like a construction project. So we're really excited about that. On April the 6th, we're having our next brown bag, and we're going to change things up a little bit. It's going to be more of an interview type meeting where I'm going to sit down with some of our executive staff and talk about things like drought and other things that are going on in the BRA. So for those of you that follow along on YouTube, I encourage you to tune in on the 6th. Also on May 22nd, our next board meeting, we will begin to walk you through what our draft water rates are going to look like for 2024. We'll talk a little bit about strategic planning, or actually we'll talk a lot about strategic planning. And those will be meetings that the public won't want to miss and our customers won't want to miss. So we look forward to you participating in that as well. We are trying to finalize our meetings for our ratepayers for this summer for June 20th through June 22nd, where we will present our budgets to our contract holders and talk about our future rates and long-term rates. And then also, last but not least, in April, we kind of took a hiatus over the last few months for our drought videos, but we're going to get back into doing our drought videos in April. if Mother Nature doesn't provide us enough rain, then our reservoirs start to fill up. We're in a real good spot because some of the streams have a little bit of flow in them, and when we see rain, we're starting to see water in the river a little bit, so that's a good thing. And hopefully, with the forecast this spring and early summer, we'll get to move in a positive direction and not have to worry about managing drought long term. But anyway, tune in April, and we'll talk more about drought with Aaron at his shop. So that's it for me, Presiding Officer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, David. Agenda item 2, report and possible discussion on project planning for the fiscal year of 2024, budget by Stephen Hemlin, Project Management Officer Manager. And you're not Stephen.
Good morning. No, I'm not Stephen. I was going to kick it off for him. Just wanted to mention we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit today. Here over the previous board meetings, we've been trying to come to you with something project related, most time project updates. With this, we're going to kind of give you a glimpse behind the curtain, let you see some of the, look into some of the pre-project planning and stuff that takes place prior to us developing the budget. So you'll get to better understand project prioritizing, developing the CIP, all the work by our project management office, our capital improvement planning and project teams that kind of goes into place before we start budgeting for projects. So next meeting, we should be back on track with some project updates and hopefully have something in regards to tracking projects, project health, whether we're on or off target. So you should see something like that in May. So with that, I'll turn it over to Steve. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Blake.
You, Blake. Quantity 1, 2000 Ford F-150. Oh, wait a minute.
That's
Sorry,
the voice.
that
That's the
comes a little bit
voice.
late. I was trying to get a head start on the,
That's
on the
the
surplus
voice.
property. Hey, thank you very much, Presiding Officer and Directors. Appreciate the opportunity to get to speak with you a little bit today. Since Mr. Collinsworth took over, 2 of his main priorities are stewardship of our infrastructure and stewardship of our capital planning. And so Blake and David Thompson are leading an effort with support from our management team all across the BRA to try to meet those priorities. And so it's my opportunity and pleasure to get to represent all the folks that are working on that budget planning process for the FY24 annual operating plan, and that's what we'll go through today. If you'll permit me, I would like to introduce a couple of folks real quick that are important to that process. So I work for Blake in the Project Management Office. The Project Management Office is a 2-person shop, myself and Aaron Vaughn, who I asked to join us today. He's a project development analyst, and he really works well with all our project delivery teams. He puts together some great tracking tools and things like that to try to make project managers' jobs a little bit easier, and we wouldn't have an effective PMO without him. You probably know David Jones. David Jones, I affectionately like to say, is our corporate knowledge here. That doesn't mean he's old. It just means he's been around for a long time. And he's kind of our go-to for corporate knowledge. He's an outstanding project engineer. He's working on a couple of our very serious and important critical infrastructure projects. But he also serves as the capital improvement planning administrator. So David's looking, tactically at the next 5 to 6 years, and then also more strategically at the 50-year. And so we don't do much in the PMO without talking with David. And if you know David, he's just a real pleasure to work with. I also you can't talk project budgeting without mentioning Michelle Gerard. Michelle runs the BRA budget office. She's one of the main driving forces behind, the award-winning annual financial reports that you get. Michelle works very closely with our project leaders and our project delivery teams to make sure that they have the funds that they need to execute and complete our projects. And so Michelle's a real asset to the BRA. All right, before any discussion, I like to try to give you a target that I'm aiming for. 2 things that I really hope you'll take away from this presentation. One is a real insight into the project planning process for the FY 2024 budget and the project budget side of the annual operating plan. As Mr. Collinsworth mentioned, you'll get kind of the first look at that in May. And I want to give you a sense of confidence that when you see those project planning numbers, those budget numbers in the annual operating plan, it's a result of a well-coordinated, well-collaborated effort among the whole BRA to get you the best possible numbers that we can get for you. I also want to highlight the great team effort to support those two priorities that Mr. Collinsworth has given us, and that's, infrastructure stewardship and stewardship of our capital improvement budget or our capital budget. It's definitely a team sport to do that, and so from Mr. Collinsworth to our management team, the project delivery teams, our operation and maintenance staff that are so important, it's really a collaborative effort, and hopefully give you an insight into that today. Blake has shown you our project delivery model, where we've divided our project delivery steps into 4 phases. The initiating, planning, executing, and closing phase. We're doing that to bring our processes kind of in line with the Project Management Institute and the Project Management Book of Knowledge, 6th edition. The process that we're going to discuss today is in the initiating phase, and that's where BRA stakeholders come together. We put together our project inventory. You can see I'm nervous because my hand's shaking, so hopefully you can kind of follow. Our project inventory, we take that, we work on our project budgets, get RMC approval for that, and that culminates in the July approval when we bring that before the board. I do want to give you a snapshot into the FY 2024 project inventory. The project inventory is the list of all operating and capital improvement projects on a 50-year planning horizon. The 50-year planning horizon works out very well because, back in 1997, Senate Bill 1, they established a water resource planning on a 50-year planning horizon. And so we're working our project inventory on a 50-year planning horizon. It is the source document for our project planning, and it's the basis for the project planning that we're working on right now for the FY 2024 budget. Michelle Gerard, she's the keeper of the project inventory, which is important because she has a list of all the projects that need to be funded in the near term, our active projects, our projects on the 5 to 6 year planning horizon. But also on the 50-year planning horizon, Michelle takes those numbers and she's able to account for those in the long-range financial plan. I do want to talk a little bit about project prioritization. We believe the project prioritization process is a very important step in being good stewards of our infrastructure and good stewards of our capital budget. Project prioritization is a systematic review of projects to classify them according to attributes that have been approved by the management team. Prioritization allows us to apply limited resources to our infrastructure projects at the right time, and it also allows us to have the right mix of infrastructure projects while continuing to support other important efforts, studies and assessments like Tiffany's water snake study, max flood analysis for Aaron Abel, but that prioritization process enables us to do that. The process started by developing a project prioritization matrix, and stakeholders established 17 key attributes to measure and score projects against. Some examples of those attributes are general manager priority, engineering inspection recommendations, new water development, public engagement, things like that. So our departments internally scored those projects in internal meetings. I think that's a very important step because that allows our operation and maintenance staff and all the different functional offices within departments to have input into that process. We have an outstanding operations and maintenance staff, and so they're key stakeholders in anything we do, so we want to make sure that they're involved and have their input into that prioritization process. Based on that department scoring, we brought that to a joint stakeholder group to develop an organizational plan that was submitted to the RMC. That's important because we're able to all sit down together and come up with organizational priority. It gives legal and purchasing and F&A insight into the projects. Mike and Brad are able to kind of compare what their priorities are, and we're able to fold those into an organizational plan. And it gives David Thompson, insight into, hey, what are our priorities? It gives legal and purchasing insight into what are our organization's priorities, and it really fosters, I think, a great level of collaboration. All our project delivery teams have persons from, each of those departments, and so it's important to come together, develop that plan in a collaborative way, and then present that to the risk management committee. I won't go into too much detail on this slide, but I just want to kind of show you as an overview of the timeline that really began back in September to start developing the project budget side of the annual operating plan. And I also want to give you the sense of how much the BRA has come together from all the departments and stakeholders to have input into the process, which culminated in a organization proposed project plan and project inventory. And then ultimately that was approved by the RMC in December. So what that resulted in is a finalized FY 2024 project inventory that Michelle was then able to kick off the project budget development. So that happened, January, February. Those were submitted to Michelle, they were put together, and our management team has approved those project budgets. And now F&A is starting to work on the annual operating plan that you'll see in May. If you permit me, I want to skip ahead one. I realized over the weekend that I probably had one slide out of order. So I did want to briefly discuss the project budget worksheets and project budget development. You probably have seen these in previous annual operating plans. The project budget worksheet is kind of a project charter that lists, some of the key information, who's who, with our project managers, engineers, and sponsors. And then it also is used by our project leaders to work with project delivery teams to kind of forecast out their cash flows over the next several fiscal years. And this is how they can communicate what their budget needs are for their project to Michelle and F&A. And Michelle uses these numbers and these documents to go into the award-winning financial reports that they put together each year. Right, so back to this slide. So what's the result? The result is a comprehensive organizational plan that, one, allows us to fine-tune our active projects, fine-tune the budgets for our active projects and our near-term projects out for the next 5 to 6 years. It also provides a well-coordinated plan to help us understand when we're going to activate new projects. I know this is a little bit of I call it a rainbow chart, but I just want to show you the orange here is basically activation years. Activation years when we start planning, our projects. And then the purple and the blue, that's when we start spending money and we're executing either studies or design. So the result is we have an organizational plan of when we're going to activate these projects while continuing to move our active projects forward. It does help project cash flows. It helps develop those project budget worksheets because project leaders can look and see what fiscal years they're going to be accomplishing what phases of the project delivery, and that helps them project their cash flows. And that communicates to David Thompson and his folks when we're going to need money, how much money we're going to need, and that allows them to start working their magic on how they're going to fund these things. But the bottom line, in my opinion, is it helps us be good stewards of our infrastructure and good stewards of our capital budget, because essentially it helps us to know we're going to spend money where it counts and when it counts. All right, so next step. So as we mentioned, the project budget worksheets have been approved. Management team has approved those. David Thompson and his great folks are working on the annual operating plan. You'll get, sorry about that. You'll get the first look at that in May. And as Mr. Collinsworth mentioned, once that's complete, we're working on the BRA Roadshow, as I like to call it, where we're hitting the streets and going out and talking to customers and giving them their first look at the budget. And then in July, David will bring that to you for your approval in July. All right, so I hope I hit the mark. So I'll just kind of follow up, and hopefully I left you with these two takeaways. And again, to give you insight into the FY 2024 project planning process and how the project budgets are put together, so that when you do see that in May, you're going to be confident that it's a well-coordinated, well-collaborated effort. I don't like to say top to bottom, but top to bottom of the BRA with all input from the different functional offices, from the folks in the field to the folks here in the central office. And secondly, I hope I really highlighted the collaborative nature that the BRA is working under to meet Mr. Collinsworth's priorities of stewardship of our infrastructure, stewardship of our capital budgets. And it's a great place to work. People work very well together. I think we're making great steps forward in making sure that we're meeting his priorities, and we're doing it in a collaborative and well-coordinated way. But if I miss the mark, please feel free to ask questions. Sir.
Who is on the risk management committee?
Yes, sir.
Who is the risk management committee, or who are the members? Because, we're in like risky times right now. You look at the finance industry, you got drought, we have possible endangered species, that we got about these mussels. So I just want to understand a little bit more about how those, our job is oversight.
Right.
But I don't really know how we're assessing those risks and how, if the drought persists or goes away, does that move it up or down in the project list? You have a plan, but you have to respond to risk.
Right. Well, I was talking to Blake this morning, and Director Huber probably knows from his military time, every plan, once the shots start getting fired, you have to adjust the plan. So having a plan, I think, is a great step in the right direction because it allows you to then adjust to those types of situations. So the Risk Management Committee, I would say there's some standard folks on the Risk Management Committee. Of course, Mr. Collinsworth, Laura Lee, and all the other management team members, Mike, Brad, Blake, Matt, and I'm probably missing a couple of folks, but it's mostly our management team. But project by project, we'll also bring experts. If it's a Lake Granbury project, then Connie's on the risk management team. Mike Green's often on the risk management team representing engineering services. And so there are, I would say, management team kind of as a standard, and then additions to that based on the project and who some of the stakeholders are. And so our project leaders, I think, do a great job of collaborating with their project teams to bring projects to the Risk Management Committee. And that's where we present the plan, and that gives the experts and the folks that are writing the checks and have to come up and stand before the board to have that input. And we are looking at market conditions, supply chain and things like that. And so if that didn't answer your question, somebody else can kind of jump in, but did I get close?
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Hey, that's okay. This is my first one, so
Right,
I guess I get a lot of
that's
latitude.
no, it's more just, I just wanted to understand a little bit more about how that process worked and, who the people were, and you did answer that question. Thanks.
Okay.
Director Abraham has a question.
Yes, I have a question about how can you predict up to 50-year projection? I heard about up to 25 years. How it is possible?
To estimate out on a 50-year horizon?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So what we've done, and again, a real well collaborated effort from the folks out in the field, we've basically looked at our major infrastructure projects, needs that are going to occur out there into the future. We're not going to get the exact time frame correct on those, but based on service life of our existing facilities, projects that we're completing now, what service life does that do? So you can kind of project on when a project is going to be required based on service life. If it's something that we've just worked on, we forecast that out, 40, 50-year service life. There's some things that, haven't been addressed in a while, so they're on a service life. And so maybe they're, 2030 out to, 2050, 2060. So you can kind of get the time frame within, 5-6 years. I'm making that up a little bit, but then also using our current estimates for what it takes to do projects. And then we provide those to Michelle, and Michelle has a way of projecting escalation and things like that, so that, when you start looking at budget numbers, today's dollars are going to be different than, FY 60 dollars. And so, so she has a formula that she can apply to kind of get the amounts right. But, I keep saying Director Huber because he was in the Air Force. It's a wag, right, to try to get things estimated that far out, but we do our best by using the methods that we talked about.
Yeah, that's what.
Can I add something to that, Steve?
Director LaChance has a question.
Okay, so the main thing is making sure we have something out there. We know Tanner, for instance, Dave was talking about Tanner Gates. We know they're going to have a lifespan 30, 40, 50 years, whatever that is. So making sure we have something out there. We do our best guess at, okay, in today dollars, what did we pay for that replacement? We put that out there. Michelle helps with the inflation things, inflation side of things. Some of the other aspects that go into it, report recommendations, some of those have a 1-year time frame associated with them. They may have 5, 10, 15 years time frame associated with them, so those get incorporated as well. In the future, what you'll start to see in something that we're working on that y'all are well aware of is a risk-based asset management stuff. So as we bring that online, that's going to get a lot more detail. We'll be able to tell you at whatever you take any facility, this certain asset is critical because it's important to the operation. So we make sure we schedule that in there for rehabilitation, replacement, whatever it may be.
Just a couple quick comments. So thanks first for introducing your team. It's nice to know who makes the composite group, and I know that they work equally hard, and y'all are doing great things in the PMO office. I have a bit of a question on the first takeaway on the 24 budget. So I have a hard time with these projects. Like you mentioned, they're long, they're a lot of money. How do we know how we're trending on projects to date in relation to what we're approving to spend on future projects?
Yes, ma'am. So that's something we're actively working. We were having meetings as late as last week on, I think we have a process and a tool developed to help deliver that message. We're still working out some of the kinks, some of the bugs in it to making sure it accurately reflects on the reporting end. So I think hopeful that in May we'll be able to bring something to you so you'll know on those project controls where we are if we're on or off target.
Yeah, y'all are doing a great job. Thanks. Don't misinterpret that.
Director Sanderson has a question.
Quick comment. This is Mr. Hamlin, I guess.
Yes, sir.
I think you did a good job on laying out the process. I think makes things flow properly. It really is. I think you did a really good job, so thank you for that.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Team effort, but I appreciate you saying so.
All right, I just want to kudos. Blake, I know you came on board specifically to put the system in place to where it was a visual so the board could actually see. I know that historically, teams have known what the different processes were and where you were in various stages. But you and your team, David, put that to where we could actually see the progress, and looking forward to the next step in dissecting that a little bit closer, like Director LaChance was mentioning. So, Stephen, thank you very much for your presentation. Blake, thank you. And thank you to the entire team. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to agenda item number 3, report and possible discussion on legislative update by Matt Phillips, Legislative and Governmental Affairs Manager. Matt, you got the Capitol under control?
Oh, of course. I'm just going to sit back down. That was great. That was way shorter than I expected it to be. All right. Well, let's talk about the session. Okay. So we're a little over halfway through the session. Obviously, things are moving fast and furious at this point. Obviously, they start really slow and then they ramp up. So committees are meeting every day, a lot of them. And at least on the Senate side, they've already started having floor sessions where they're passing bills off the Senate floor. The House is catching up to that. They tend to be a little bit slower. They're actually going to have their first calendar tomorrow. So where we are in time and space is it is a mad dash to the finish. The deadline for filing non-local bills was March 10th, and the legislature filed a historic number of bills. They smashed the previous record by about 1,000 bills. And you may ask yourself why? Because they got money. That's why. And whenever they have money, everybody's got ideas. Not all of those are good ideas, but everybody's got ideas when they have money. So I think that's why you're seeing so many bills filed. A lot of those are to create new things, fund new things, new programs, new facilities, things like that. So I think that's why you saw so many bills. I still think the same amount of bills are going to die because the process is generally designed to kill. That's why it's so short and that's why it moves so fast. So talking a little bit about the things that we care about. At the beginning of the session, I think it was generally well understood or thought that it's not going to be a big water session. And I think from the standpoint of water policy, that is still true. I don't think you're going to see a ton of wholesale changes to major water policy issues. However, I do think it could and very well likely will be a big session in terms of water funding. We all know the legislature has a historic surplus, $33 billion in the Economic Stabilization Fund, and there is a lot of support among leadership, Lieutenant Governor, Speaker, and the governor to at least set aside some of that funding and throw it towards water infrastructure. Now, there's a lot of other priorities for that money too. So figuring out how much that's going to be will be kind of part of the game that takes place over the next 60 days. So the main vehicles for that are House Bill 10 and Senate Bill 28, and then two associated joint resolutions. What these both do is they create two new water funds. So one of them is the New Water Supply Fund. What that focuses on is innovative water. So it is focused on water from other states like Louisiana. It's focused on produced water, so oil and gas wastewater, and making that into a viable water source. And then it's also focused on desalination. So the purpose of that fund is to focus funding on water that doesn't currently exist in this state. So that's what that's looking at. The Texas Water Fund goes toward more traditional Water Development Board programs, so SWIFT, state participation, economically distressed areas, rural utilities. So it siphons money into current Water Development Board funding programs that already exist that are all oversubscribed at this point, meaning they have way too many applicants for the amount of money they have. That fund will also focus on replacing old infrastructure, particularly in rural and small communities. That's something that we're seeing in our basin. You've got a lot of small rural areas that are starting to experience growth. Their infrastructure can't keep up. They don't have the customer base or, in many cases, the sophistication to be able to upgrade all of their systems, and so this would provide money for that. In terms of the discussion around these, I do think they're going to pass. I do think they have support. They will obviously submit constitutional amendments to the voters to be voted on in November because they're creating dedicated funds that are outside of the Treasury. The key thing will be what I mentioned earlier, and that's how much. How much money is this fund going to, or these two new funds going to have? I've seen anywhere from $1 billion to $5 billion thrown around. I think if I'm a betting man, it's going to be 3 because it's going to somehow be, somewhere in between. In terms of the split of these two funds, the way that they're talking about it is the Texas Water Fund, which is the traditional programs and the leaky pipes, would get 2/3 of whatever they set aside. And then the New Water Supply Fund would get 1/3 of whatever they set aside. So again, the devil's in the details on where they go with that and how much money they end up setting aside. But I do think they'll pass. Some other bills that have been filed this session, House Bill 3812, that is a really, really broad Texas infrastructure fund. So it would throw money at things like roads, utilities, water is one of those, broadband. It just basically directs money to all of those. I don't see that one moving because, again, I think 10 and 28 are the vehicles. HGR 169 is interesting because instead of one-time funding toward water infrastructure, it actually creates a continued funding source or a dedicated funding source for water infrastructure that's a portion of the sales tax. It's an idea that's been kicked around from time to time. Again, I think 10 and 28 are the vehicles, and I don't see this one moving, but it'll be an interesting discussion if it moves forward. And then I do also think the legislature is going to set aside some amount of funding for the Flood Infrastructure Fund. That fund is also oversubscribed. They created the flood planning process and the Flood Infrastructure Fund 2 sessions ago. They need additional funding into that so that not only they can fund projects, but they can continue the flood planning process because the Water Development Board doesn't have enough money to continue that. So I do think if you're looking at all the ones on this page, 10, 28, and 1336 are probably the things that I actually see moving this session. Yes.
Before you move on, could you elaborate? The water, you said something about Louisiana?
Yeah, so the focus of part of House Bill 10 and Senate Bill 28, it doesn't specifically call out Louisiana, but it says water transported to this state from another state. And there's long been this idea that Toledo Bend Reservoir, which straddles the states, is that Texas could buy some of that Louisiana portion and pipe it into Texas. And in doing so, you would avoid the state's interbasin transfer rules because it's not transfer in between basins, it's transfer from another state. So it's a project that's been out there for a while. I couldn't tell you its viability, but it's one that folks are interested in. So I think that's what they mean when they're talking about that. Now, could they look at other states too? Sure, they very well could, but that's the one that's been kicked around the most. Yes, ma'am.
Question about the new water supply fund, and when you mentioned the desalinization, can you explain a little bit more on that, or is there enough that you can elaborate any on that?
Well, no, I can. So that's meant to supply funding to potentially create one or more large-scale desalination projects on the coast. So to basically desalinate seawater and hopefully get some of those coastal communities on desal water. The issue with desal is it's expensive, and getting folks to convert to it is hard. You've got folks that pay very low water rates, especially down there, especially if they're on groundwater. And so getting them to convert to a water source that's multiple times more expensive than what they're used to becomes difficult. So I think it's trying to get that water supply off the ground and maybe make it more of a thing.
Like to establish it, but or would it be like establish and see it through for a while?
I think it would fund the initial project. I think ultimately the customers end up having to pay for a desal plant. But I think, the Water Development Board could provide a low interest loan or a grant to seed money for an initial project. It could take several different forms, but that's what I would see happening. Eventually we pay for it. I mean, that's how it's always going to work.
That's true. Thank you.
So a little bit of water policy. Again, I don't expect it to be a big water policy session, but that doesn't mean they're not going to file bills. So House Bill 874 exempts water rights from cancellation for non-use if they're being devoted to in-stream flows. It's not a bad idea. So if somebody isn't using a water right, but they want to leave it in the river and allow it to create some environmental flow, this would keep TCEQ from canceling the right because it's not being used. That is a process that TCEQ can do under current law. Repeal of the junior rights provision for interbasin transfers. This one's an interesting one. So basically, if you do an interbasin transfer, the water that you transfer from one basin to another is junior, meaning it's the most junior water in the basin. This bill gets rid of that. It takes away the junior rights provision. I don't think it's going to be well received. The folks in East Texas tend to like the junior rights provision. They're the ones that came up with it. The speaker is from East Texas. So I don't think that one's going to get a lot of play, but we'll see how it goes. It's just an interesting discussion to have because interbasin transfers were made to be difficult many years ago, and junior rights is one of the things that makes them difficult. Notice for water right amendment for change of use. So essentially what that one does is it increases the notice that you have to do if you change the use of a water right. So if you're converting it from industrial to municipal, it makes that notice process more robust and harder. That stems out of the Fairfield Lake State Park issue. So, obviously, if those of you have read the news about Fairfield Lake State Park, got bought by a private owner, and they, didn't extend the lease for Texas Parks and Wildlife. And as part of that, they also got a water right amendment to change the use of that lake. And so this is seeking to go back and make it harder for them to do that. So it really just stems from that one issue. It's not really a broad statewide issue. Prohibition on interbasin transfers. So House Bill 2515 makes interbasin transfers easier. House Bill 5279 prohibits them altogether. So it's literally both sides of the spectrum. I don't know that I see that one moving. I don't see the legislature making any changes to interbasin transfers, whether they do the first one or the second one. I don't see either of those moving forward. And then state agency contest and TCQ permitting. So currently, state agencies aren't allowed to have standing in water right permits or wastewater permits. This bill would give them standing. So think Parks and Wildlife or any other state agency could actually be a protestant in a permitting process. Don't think that's the best idea. It was filed last session. There was a reason that they weren't allowed to have that standing, and we think that should continue. So again, it was filed last session. It didn't move last session. I don't know that I see it moving this session as well. Switching gears to groundwater. This first one is one that we support, Groundwater District Permitting Shot Clock Bill. So basically what it does is if you are seeking a permit from a groundwater district and you end up going through a contested case process and an administrative law judge issues a proposal for decision, currently there is no timetable by which a groundwater district has to act on that permit. And it created a specific situation with LCRA, with a groundwater district, where they got a proposal for decision, and the groundwater district just chose to sit on it for a number of years. They basically just wouldn't take it up, failed to act on it. And so this bill essentially creates a 180-day shot clock by which the groundwater district has to act on a proposal for decision. They can grant it, they can deny it, they can modify it, but they still have to act within that 180 days. We support that bill. We're not in that situation, but we could be in the future as we seek to develop groundwater. So that regulatory certainty is important to us and others seeking to develop groundwater. GCD rules petition, it just increases the number of people living within a district who can petition a groundwater district to change their rules. Right now, it's limited to well owners. It actually allows all property owners to be able to do that. There's a bunch of changes being made related to desired future conditions. Those are meant more to be transparency related, so increasing the transparency with which groundwater districts have to adopt their desired future conditions, requiring them to have more public process when they do that. Mitigation programs and fees. This one's a little concerning because right now groundwater districts already can charge fees that they can use to mitigate for wells that are affected by, let's say, a large groundwater producer. However, this bill not only allows them to charge fees, it also allows them to halt pumping. And when it allows them to halt pumping, they don't have to do so across the board. They can pick and choose who they tell not to pump. So that's something that concerns us, concerns any potential groundwater developer, because if you're a transporter, the odds are you're the one they're going to tell to cut back, nobody else. So if they apply it fairly across the board, fine, but not doing that is problematic. Surface groundwater interaction, these get filed every session. It's basically to study the interaction of surface and groundwater in Texas. The fight over that one always ends up being who's going to study it and what are they going to do with the information. And so it has not passed yet because that hurdle never seems to get cleared. Loser pays, that's one I talk about almost every session, and that is currently only a groundwater district can recover attorney's fees in a lawsuit with a petitioner. This allows either the groundwater district or the private citizen to get attorney's fees. It's never passed. It gets fought about every session. It may pass this session, who knows? But it tends to be the thing that hangs up all of the big groundwater bills is somebody will stick loser pays in there and that'll kill it. So, and then aquifer storage and recovery in Williamson County. This is our bill. And as you can tell by the bill number, Senate Bill 2379, it got filed really late. Matter of fact, it got filed on Friday, March 10th, which is not typically how we like to do things. But, so right now, and you all know about the expansion of our East Williamson County facility there near the city of Taylor on Lake Granger. One of the things that we want to do with that facility is aquifer storage and recovery. So think pumping water down into an aquifer and having a supply later. However, currently, statutes related to the Edwards Aquifer and doing aquifer storage and recovery in the Edwards Aquifer define the Edwards zone to include all of Williamson County. And the reason that they do that is because the Edwards does touch a portion of central and western Williamson County. However, the water-bearing portion of the Edwards does not exist on the eastern portion of Williamson County. The problem with those statutes and rules, and I say it's a problem, they're very protective of the water quality of the Edwards. So they make doing ASR in the Edwards very difficult, and rightly so. The Edwards is protected for a reason. But because it doesn't exist in eastern Williamson County, what Senate Bill 2379 does is it creates a specific geographic carve-out for the eastern portion of Williamson County so that we will be able to do ASR over near the Lake Granger plant. It also will allow the city of Georgetown, who's working on their own ASR project, to be able to do ASR in eastern Williamson County. So that one's ours. Yes, sir. Position. We've talked to the Edwards Aquifer Authority. We've talked to the Barton Springs Edwards Aquifer Authority. They agree that they don't see that area to be within their jurisdiction. Those would typically be the only folks that might oppose it. So no, we haven't seen any opposition. As far as the support, when we went to Senator Schwartner, he was willing to file it immediately once he understood it. And the folks at TCEQ also, they're going through sunset, so they're a little overwhelmed, but they haven't given us a whole lot of pushback against it. So I wouldn't so much say there's a ton of support for it as, so much as to say there's not any opposition to it. So I think the only thing that's going to affect us on that one is the lateness with which we got it filed. Sunset, we talked about this before the session. There's a lot of natural resource agencies under Sunset, PUC, TCQ, Soil Board, Water Development Board. I think the push this session is to keep the Sunset bills clean. That's a noble thought. And I love the idea that the authors of those bills are making the pledge that they're not going to allow a bunch of Christmas tree stuff to get stuck to those bills. I'll believe it when I see it, because that is not typically how anything ever happens. So both the House and the Senate authors of these different bills have pledged that they're going to keep the bills the same all the way through the process. They're not going to allow small, local, pet project things to get amended onto them. But once again, that's usually what those bills are used for, so we'll see how that goes. The Sunset Scheduling Bill, that is the bill that sets out Sunset Commission's review schedule for the next several years. And the only reason I mention it in here is because we are in it, and it actually moves our sunset date back from 2033 to 2035. So it pushes us back 2 years, and that's not anything specific to us. They just have to look at their schedule, and the other agencies they have to review. Us and several other river authorities got moved back 2 years. And then House Bill 3316 gets filed every session. It removes river authorities from sunset. So I don't see a path forward for that one in the Senate, but it'll get talked about. And then the individual river authority sunset bills, there's 4 or 5 river authorities that went through sunset this last session: LNVA, San Jacinto River Authorities, San Antonio River Authority. They'll have their own individual sunset bills. We watch those typically because we're looking for any sort of precedent-setting things that they put in those bills that might eventually be applied to us. The River Authority Board member term issue is one that we've talked about, where there's this back and forth over whether or not river authorities should have 4-year terms or 6-year terms. And if they apply some blanket across the board provision in these individual river authority sunset bills, sunset then tends to read that as, okay, that's an across the board thing you want us to do for everybody now. So that's why we're watching those. Others. The others are what you tend to spend all your time on, okay? The water stuff we spend way less time on, and the others are what we spend most of our time on. Always a variety of open records bills filed every session, doing anything from changing the definition of business day to dictating how much you can charge for records, to dictating how you have to allow electronic records to be disclosed, meaning they have to be searchable and sortable. So there's always a bunch of tweaks to open record statutes that we watch, because obviously we comply with open records. Contracting. Every session, there have been bills for the last several sessions dictating who public entities can contract with. So you can't contract with companies that boycott Israel. You can't contract with companies that boycott the Second Amendment or oil and gas. There's a whole list of do not do business things. We watch these because they apply to us and they require us to change the language of our contracts to make sure that they read correctly. And what you're seeing this session is the addition of some more countries and entities that you can't do business with. And so obviously we have to make sure that we're compliant with those moving forward, should they pass, which I think most of them probably will. House Bill 2310, we spent a bunch of time working on last week, construction defect litigation. Essentially what it does, and I understand the intent of it, having talked to the author, but it creates this process by which, in order to file a construction defect claim, you almost have to prove your entire case with expert testimony and things like that before you can even file a claim, meaning before you can even access the court. So it creates this whole process that you have to do. What he was after is, let's say with a commercial building, you have a leaky roof. He doesn't want the guy that laid the sod to get sued. And apparently that is happening in some cases. So totally understand what he's after. However, projects like ours, like dams and wastewater plants and pipelines, are much more complex. Defects may not present themselves for several years. Proving who's at fault is extremely difficult, requires a lot of work to figure that out. So we were successful in working with that author in getting a civil works project exemption in his bill. So it will apply to all sorts of other construction, but it will not apply to civil works. So think dams, water, wastewater, utilities, roads. So it won't apply to any of those types of projects. So we appreciate him working with us on that. Open meetings, a lot of discussion around virtual meetings, mainly for certain entities like the Water Development Board or some of these more volunteer boards within the Water Development Board or TCEQ, allowing them to meet virtually, like the Water Conservation Advisory Council, because those committees meet pretty frequently and they include people from all over the state. And right now they have to meet in Austin. So just allowing them to do Zoom meetings. So again, we continue to see a little bit of that. Public funds for lobbying. filed every session, has been discussed the last several sessions. Right now, Senate Bill 175, as it exists today, includes us, okay? It includes even an entity that does not tax. As that bill has been discussed over the last several sessions, it typically gets whittled down to simply taxing entities or entities that levy a tax. I think that's probably going to happen again, but I don't know. So as it sits right now, Senate Bill 175, which has been heard in committee in the Senate, if it were to pass, we would not be able to employ or hire lobbyists. So I guess I'll go back to mowing. I don't know. I don't know what I'll do. No. But so we'll see where that one goes. Again, I do think it'll get negotiated into a different version of itself. I think it'll end up applying only to actual tax levying entities. Licensing requirements for water and wastewater operators. This one's an interesting one. So this allows, and we supported this one, this allows you to start the process of getting your D license without having to have a high school diploma or a GED. So kids can start training for it in high school. As you know, operator shortages are everywhere. We're dealing with them. So the more folks that we can get into that process, the better. And so this is something that we support. So we can get folks starting to train earlier in their career. And then conflicts of interest disclosure. This is something y'all deal with. Obviously, having to disclose any conflicts. The ledge is always looking to make some tweaks to that. Some of those are good. Some of them are not so good. Senate Bill 797 specifically will increase disclosure. So it changes some of the consanguinity rules to not have to be the first degree, but to go as far as the third degree of consanguinity. And I'll look at Riley, and I don't even know how you explain that one, but it does increase disclosure. So obviously we're watching those in case they do pass and we end up having to comply with them, because obviously y'all do and we do. That's it. I know I went through a lot. We're tracking lots of bills. We're doing our thing right now. So it's fun times.
That was a lot. Okay, wow, the hands went up. Let's start right here. Director Hebert.
And Matt, the two bills on interbasin transfers, you said you don't anticipate they'll pass, but that would be like our Stillhouse Hollow to Georgetown pipeline.
No, those are in the same. So interbasin.
Oh, interbasin, not
yeah,
reservoir.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
Interbasin transfer would be like from the Colorado to the Brazos, the Trinity to the Brazos, back and forth.
Okay, thanks. Clearing that up.
Director Savage.
Matt, I had a question on the desal issue, because Corpus, had already built their plant and everything else, and then the QC or CQ passed it, and then the EPA kind of weighed in, and so it kind of threw a big wrinkle in the desal efforts really statewide.
Yeah.
Have you heard any more or update on that? I know it was about their district.
I know that they were having issues with their discharge permit, and I think they continue to have those issues. They didn't happen with TCQ. Like, you're right, it was EPA that came in. So I don't know where that one's at, but okay. I do think that will be an issue with any desal facility, because you're going to have what do you do with the water, the
reject water,
What do you do with the reject water? Where do you put it? Is it safe? I think anybody that seeks to permit and build a desal plant is going to have to deal with that issue.
All right, thanks.
All right, I think David. Go ahead, David.
So we only have so many resources to do the job that we have to do on a daily basis. So when the session rolls around and you see all these bills with all these numbers and their companion bills, it's more than just watching the bill. It is watching the bill and interacting with the author and the nays and the yays all the way until the bill gets approved. We're now watching for amendments and all of the different things that are going to come into these bills, because all of these bills impact our business, how we spend money, how we do things. So when a bill comes and Matt reviews it, and then the rest of our staff gets pulled off of projects to review bills and be a part of this really extensive process, it is really resource extensive in what we do. And I just want you to know that at the Capitol and the way that we do business, we have absolutely the very best at what he does, and that's Matt Phillips.
Amen.
And we're in absolute outstanding hands, and he knows the process, he knows the players, and he is absolutely first class in Austin, Texas.
So we'll all pray about that public funds for lobbying bill that it comes up, right?
Hey, I didn't mind mowing. I was pretty good at it.
He is not a lobbyist. He is down there so much that he registers as a lobbyist, and we'll find a weed eater for him if we need to.
Advocate. Thank you, Matt. All right, agenda item number 4, discussion and possible action on surplus personal property by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer. All right, David.
I know you've been waiting for this agenda.
We have.
It's exciting, right? Worked
too much.
I'll try to make it as painless as possible.
Ready,
but
Stephen?
Unfortunately, it will be painful.
Been waiting for 2 years for this.
As you know, state statutes requires that anytime we get rid of personal property that it's required, that are defective, too expensive to repair, we simply don't need, we have to bring it to the board for you to approve. Once you approve it, we then put it on a well-advertised auction to sell. So what I want to do is, again, go through and let you see what we're surplusing. So Stephen has graciously to read the resolution. I need to make sure I have a quorum here, so everybody needs to come back. So, sure. Yes, sir. There was one that's not working. There's one vehicle that's not working.
How's it disposed of? You company that you use?
Usually we put it out on auction and somebody will go look at it and figure out they're mechanic enough to know what to do with it, and then they haul it away. We don't spend the money to haul them here. We used to do that, but we don't do that anymore. So.
Is that an online auction?
It is an online auction. It's Bates, and it's one of the most well used by all the public entity groups. And we've been very successful on it.
I heard somebody get coffee. Apparently I can't do it.
Any other questions before the excitement to read the resolution?
Seeing none,
Stephen?
read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to dispose of the following surplus personal property under the terms and conditions that are in the best interest of the Brazos River Authority. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors authorizes the General Manager, CEO, in certain instances to continue to use and/or maintain previously authorized surplus property in a manner that is in the best interest of the Brazos River Authority until appropriate replacement property is received and placed in service. Is no longer needed or repairs not cost efficient. Quantity 1, 2013 Ford F-150 two-wheel drive extended cab, VIN 1 Foxtrot Tango Foxtrot X-Ray India Charlie Fox 1 Delta Foxtrot Bravo 2036, mileage 170,590. Quantity 1, 2012 Chevy Silverado 2500 4x4 crew cab 3/4 ton, VIN 1 Golf Charlie 1 Kilo Victor Charlie Golf 0 Charlie Fox 143469, mileage 162,085. Quantity 1, 2011 Chevy Silverado HD 2500 4x4 extended cab, VIN 1 Golf Charlie 2 Kilo Victor Charlie Golf 1 Bravo Zulu 254274, mileage 137,335, currently not working. Quantity 1, 2007 Ford F-150 4x4 extended cab, VIN 1 Foxtrot Tango Victor X-ray 14567, November Alpha 54696, mileage 134,007. 1993 Chevy Kodiak flatbed, VIN 1 Golf Bravo Mike 7 Hotel 1 Juliet 9 Papa Juliet 105096, mileage 16,581.2, manual transmission. Quantity 1 2000 Ford F-350 4x2 pickup, VIN 1 Foxtrot Delta Whiskey Foxtrot 36 Foxtrot 5 Yankee Echo Charlie 96150, mileage 71,390, manual transmission. Quantity 1, 2005 20-foot hefty utility trailer, VIN 5 November Kilo Bravo Charlie 202 649 000328 with dovetails and ramps. Wood is weathered with normal wear. Lot 1, Massey Ferguson tractor, serial number Delta 11542, model number 2402 Whiskey Delta, type 2773, 1,764 hours. 2, 1995 Ford diesel cabbed tractor, model number 7740, four-wheel drive with 20-foot boom mower and bucket, tractor, serial number Bravo Delta 76242, Alamo flail mower, serial number 01224, model Bravo Mike Hotel Delta, 521 hours. Lot 3, John Deere skid steer, serial number Kilo Victor 027 0 Alpha 370532, model number 270, 3,869 hours. Lot 4, 2009 Ford F-250 white truck bed fleet side removed from service in 2009. Lot 5, Quantity 2 shop-made metal angle and tubing truck bed racks, age unknown, paint is peeling and rust from normal wear, removed from service in 2017. Lot 6, auto crane, serial number ETR 0213-009, model number ET Roto, bed mount auto crane with controls, age unknown, was working when removed from service in 2016. Lot 7, Thermo Scientific Precision Oven, model number 6555, mechanical convection oven, 14 years old, no longer working. Lot 8, Thermo Scientific Lindbergh Blue M Oven, model number 6965, programmable, 12 years old, working when removed from service in 2021. Lot 9, higher, excuse me, small under-counter refrigerator, model number Hotel Sierra Papa 03, Whiskey November, Alpha Whiskey, 20 years old, working when removed from service in 2021. 10, Mettler Toledo top load balance, model number PL602, age unknown, showed signs of failure and erratic results when removed from service in June 2019. Lot 11, Quantity 2, ESF Surveyor HL displays, serial number 16105 Sierra Victor 00931 and serial number 17052 Sierra Victor 01143, model number Hydrolab/HL Surveyor, multi-probe instrument display, 6 years old, working when removed from service in 2021. Lot 12, Quantity 1, YSI multi-probe handheld display, serial number 150100247. Quantity 2, lithium-ion battery and charger, Quantity 1, model number YSI EXO handheld generation 1, 7 years old, technology is obsolete and removed from service in 2020. 13, used desk accessories, Quantity 2, black metal file sorters with 5 slots, 11 by 12 by 7.25. Quantity 1, black metal file sorter with 4 slots, 10.25 by 8 by 7.25. Quantity 1, black metal file sorter with 6 slots, 11 by 12 by 8.75. Quantity 3, tan metal file sorter with 8 slots, 11 by 15 by 8.75. Quantity 1, black plastic file sorter with 5 slots, 9 by 13.25 by 6.75. Quantity 1, wire file sorter, 11 slot. Quantity 1, tan metal bin, 7.75 by 15 by 7.25. Quantity 1, metal sorter tray, 3 tray, 5 slot. Quantity 2, black medium bookends, 6 by 7. Quantity 5, small bookends, 5 by 4.75. Quantity 1, metal footrest, removed from service in 2022. Lot 14, Staples Mailmate Shredder, 10 years old, no longer working. Lot 15, ISCO 3700 refrigerated auto sampler, serial number 205 Juliet 01402, 16 years old, will not cool down, cannot be repaired. Lot 16, ICE code 3700 refrigerated auto sampler, serial number 205 Juliet 01400, 15 years old, working when removed from service in 2022, is outdated, not dependable. Lot 17, ISCO 4700 refrigerated auto sampler, serial number 207 Delta 01175, 15 years old, no longer working. Lot 18, approximately 5 tons of miscellaneous rusted scrap metal, age unknown. Lot 19, approximately 10 tons of rusted scrap aluminum and sheet metal. Assortment includes scrap pipe, channel, square tubing, flat iron, cable, assorted metal gutters, approximately 6 tons of rebar, miscellaneous other metals, age unknown. Lot 20, quantity 5, stainless steel elevator doors, measures 7 foot tall by 19 inches wide, age unknown, rusted and weathered. Lot 21, approximately 600 feet of 6-foot aluminum irrigation pipe, age unknown, rusted and weathered. Lot 22, quantity 6, aluminum pickup cross box toolboxes, age unknown, rusted with normal wear. Lot 23, Bomag compactor, model number Bravo Papa 18/45-2, age unknown, no longer working. Lot 24, small shop metal building with metal roof, measures 76 inches by 74 inches by 100 inches, age unknown, some interior and exterior damage. Lot 25, 8-foot by 8-foot metal building with metal siding and roof, age unknown, no floor, removed from service, 2015. Lot 26, quantity 10, assorted wall and desk file holders, age unknown. Lot 27, quantity 6, metal boat ramps of assorted lengths and widths, 20 years old, rusted and bent from use.
Reading of the resolution, is there a motion to adopt? Motion made by Director Crone, a second by Director Henderson. Please pull the board.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Giese,
Yes.
Director LaChance, yes. Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Agenda. Wilson County Regional Raw Water Line, WCRRWL, copper iron generator by Brad Brunette, Central and Lower Basin Regional Manager. Brad?
Everyone.
Good morning.
This is an action item. We're going to be requesting your approval to enter a construction contract to install a copper ion generator system at our Lake Stillhouse Hollow intake structure that will help protect our Williamson County Regional Raw Water Line from zebra mussels going forward into the future. So just real quick again, the Williamson County Regional Raw Water Line transfers water from Lake Stillhouse Hollow down to Lake Georgetown. We've got 3 customers that actually own and pay for this system under a cost reimbursable contract with us. You can see the city of Georgetown is the largest of those, and their service area also now includes what was formerly the Chisholm Trail Special Utility District. So that's the green and the peach colors that you see there is all the area that's supplied by Georgetown at this point. The city of Round Rock is one of the customers, and you can see the blue or purple color for the city of Round Rock there, and the Brushy Creek Municipal Utility District in yellow. So those 3 customers own this infrastructure, and they reimburse us for all of our capital as well as O&M expenses. This is actually a picture of the intake structure there at Stillhouse Hollow. This copper ion generator that we're talking about will actually be housed in a new building that will be on shore. So you can see a couple of buildings back there on the shore now where some of the instrumentation and controls for the system are located. So we'll have a new building back there that will house this system. And then there will actually be piping extending from that building out across the bridge on the structure out to the intake structure and then down under the water where this copper solution will actually be injected to protect the system. Just some really gross pictures of what we're trying to prevent or protect against. Those are zebra mussels, and none of that is our infrastructure, but it's extreme examples of problems that these things can cause that we're going to be preventing with this system. This is a couple of examples of what one of these things looks like. Ours is going to be larger than these, but they basically take solid copper rods and then convert that into a solution with very low concentrations of copper solution that then get dosed into the water. And that copper solution prevents the zebra mussels from attaching and thriving, and it can even kill existing zebra mussels that have been established. And again, we'll be injecting the solution down underwater at the intake screens there below the structure that you saw a moment ago. So Walker Partners is the engineering firm that designed this system for us, and we have Joe Jenkins, who's the design engineer, is here with us today. We recently went through a request for bid process to select a contractor for the project. This slide here shows the calendar for that bid process. We started back in December and opened bids last month on February the 8th. And so Walker Partners and our staff have gone through the bid evaluation process to ensure that all the bids met our requirements. You can see a few of the items that we were specifically looking for in the bids here on this slide. Construction of the project is going to entail a number of different disciplines that you can see here. We also required a 10-year warranty on the copper ion generator itself, as well as a 10-year service agreement on that piece of equipment. And so both of those 10-year periods will be in addition to the standard contractor's 2-year warranty. We'll also have an option to renew that service agreement at the end of the first 10-year period. So the opinion of probable construction costs when we completed the design was $2.164 million. We ended up receiving 4 bids for the project. We were very pleased with that. And as you can see in the table, the bids were pretty tightly, were all pretty tight. They range from about $2.2 million up to $2.6 million. Peabody General Contractors was the low bidder. Their bid was a little over $2.2 million, as you can see there. And they were found to have met all the requirements that we had included in the bid specifications. So that's the company that we're recommending approval to contract with for the project. And I've got a resolution on the next slide. The resolution, you will see the amount includes a 10% contingency. So we're looking to get a little bit more money approved than the bid just for unforeseen circumstances in the event we have any change orders that we don't have to come back to the board for. So the number that you see in the resolution will be the $2.212 million plus 10%. And that's all I have for you, but I'd be happy to try to answer any questions before we go to the resolution.
2 questions for you. Will you go back to the picture that you had at the beginning? When was that picture taken? One more, that one. When did y'all take that picture? And it looks like the lake level is a little bit low there, and I wanted to make sure I'm not crazy thinking that it's lower than I would anticipate.
I have no idea. This picture is not new, so it's not something that we've taken in this drought. It may have been back in the 2011 timeframe, but just looking at the picture here, I would say it's probably maybe 8 to 10 feet low, something like that. I think the water level is normally, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the water level is normally up onto this lower.
That's correct. And you can see the brown marks on the legs at the walkway. That's about where the water level is. And the house on the left was built in 2011, so that helps you a little bit.
My other question is, so we're looking at doing something new there. Are we introducing any kind of pollutants into the lake doing this? Is this kind of a known way to control that, or kind of talk me through that?
So yeah, one of the reasons we selected this system was because it's chemical free. Some of the alternatives to a copper ion generator include chemicals that we would have to store on site. So that was one of the things that went into selection of the system. The concentrations of the copper solution that we're going to be injecting are very, very low. I think less than 20 micrograms per liter. And so the copper itself is approved, an EPA approved material for broadcasting in lakes. This one is kind of unique. TCEQ doesn't have an approval process. We coordinated with TCEQ thoroughly to make sure that there wasn't anything that we needed to do with them. There's no permit or anything, so TCEQ has just asked us to maintain records of our dosage rates and things like that. So we'll be doing that. And then we also had to get approval from the Corps of Engineers in order to proceed forward. So very low concentrations, and there aren't any long-term consequences associated with that or any permitting that we had to go through.
Thank you. You answered my next question already, so I appreciate that.
Director Huber has a question here.
Yes, I think there's systems like this in the Northeast that are in use. One of our customers, Brushy Creek Municipal Utility District, one of the customers paying for this system just installed their own system at Lake Georgetown. They have their own intake structure there, and so they put a system in for their structure there at Lake Georgetown. Joe,
There's about.
Those that are watching from home.
we may have to get an extension for you, Joe.
Morning. Yeah, there's about 5 of these systems in operation right now. City of Pflugerville just started theirs for treating about 20 million gallons a day. Horseshoe Bay has 2 systems operating currently. And City of Austin is putting it at all 3 of their facilities right now. So it is a proven system. And as Brad said, it started in Michigan, Northeast area, because they got mussels before we did. And so this technology is just kind of filtered down to us.
Okay, thank you.
Before you walk here, Director Huber has a question.
You are, so they know online.
My name's Joe Jenkins. I was the project manager, project engineer for the project, and I'm with Walker Partners here in Waco.
Thank you.
Generating copper ions from these copper rods, right? Do the rods have to be replaced periodically? Yes, sir, they sure do. It's like an anode, it slowly dissolves it, and there's alarms and things when it needs replacement. And so, yes, sir, it does. That is the main maintenance of this system. It's quite an amazing apparatus, I'll tell you.
Director Embro?
Process is where you get a pilot test ahead of time to kind of see how it was going to be, the effect of it for this specific application?
Yes, it had been done. Tarrant Regional Water District ran a full pilot that TCQ reviewed and accepted, and some of the professors at TCU actually ran some of the data on the efficacy of the dosage and how well it killed the mussels and their velingers. The velingers are the little guys that aren't in a mussel yet, and then the mussel itself. And through that work that they did there at Tarrant Regional, based on that data, so it was done here for Texas. So we're able to kind of piggyback on that data.
Thank you.
Nice. Any other questions? Thank you.
I might just, I think the concern is about copper itself. It is, these mussels are very sensitive to it, but there are lakes and rivers, and I'm sure there's one in the basin that is copper limited because it can kill other mussels, but we are feeding it at such a low rate. We're actually lower than some of the background levels of copper that's coming in the watershed. So we feel like it's going to be real safe, but we will be monitoring that as part of our permit. The cities, Round Rock, Georgetown, and BC Mud have to monitor that copper level to make sure we're not doing something that's overfeeding.
Thank you very much.
Just one more quick note, like we're going to inject this at the screens, and so it's going to protect our system from the intake pipes up through the pipeline, but also it'll protect our motors on the pumps. We've got cooling lines that water cool those motors, and so that's been a concern that if we get these zebra mussels inside of the cooling lines, we could have problems with our motors. So it's going to protect the entire system, you know, from where the water goes into the pipe all the way to Lake Georgetown.
So Brad, he just mentioned that the cities involved, or the MUD and the city of Round Rock and Georgetown, would be the ones to monitor the copper level, but who's monitoring to make sure that zebra mussels aren't growing?
Our folks will be doing that. We periodically check the pipeline right now and open up different sections of the cooling lines to monitor that. And we GoPro the cans with a GoPro camera regularly just to look at how many mussels are down inside of those cans. And I'll be honest with you, one of the things that we've found since we've been dealing with zebra mussels is it's very unpredictable. You'll go long periods of time without seeing much, and then all of a sudden boom, you've got a bunch of muscles somewhere. So that's one of the reasons I think the system is going to be important to us, because you can kind of get lulled to sleep thinking things are okay, and then all of a sudden, conditions change, and here they are.
Okay. Thank you. So seeing there are no other questions, I believe we have a resolution to consider. Please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to execute a contract with Peabody General Contractors, LLC for construction services required to complete the Williamson County Regional Raw Water Line Pump Station Copper Ion Generator Project for an amount not to exceed $2,433,640. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to approve change orders as deemed appropriate by the General Manager, CEO, subject to the aforementioned not to exceed value.
We've heard the reading of the resolution. There's a motion made by Director Henderson and a second made by Director Ruiz. Please poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores,
Yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Giese,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director LaChance,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embrock,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Item number 6, discussion and possible action on retirement committee membership by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer.
This agenda item covers the appointment of a new member to our retirement committee. Director Leslie, as you know, retired from the board. Presiding Officer Flores has made an appointment of Director Crone to join the committee. That'll be a number of 5 on the committee itself.
Good choice.
The procedure does require that the board approve the appointment. Questions?
Seeing no questions, please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Retirement Committee shall be comprised of no more than 9 members and no less than 5 members selected from the Board of Directors, and be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby ratifies Presiding Officer Flores' appointment of the following individual to serve as a member of the Retirement Committee: Judy Crone. The appointed member of the Retirement Committee shall serve on the committee until a successor is appointed.
Heard the reading of the resolution. Wow, everybody approves you. Director Wilson here is a first and a second by Tracy LaChance. Please poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores,
Absolutely, yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Giese,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director
Yes. Didn't want to read the wrong one.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
And just so you'll know, for those of you that are newer to the board, this is the only committee that can act independent without board approval. They act as a voting member of themselves.
You just put your hands in Judy Crone's. Right. Agenda item number 7. The Board of Directors will conduct a closed meeting and executive session on the following matters. A, to consult with the attorney regarding potential litigation with respect to the Lake Granbury Low Flow Gate Project pursuant to the authority granted by Section 551.071 of the Texas Open Meetings Act codified. It's Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. If you're not specifically involved in the presentation of the first executive agenda item, please excuse yourself from the boardroom at this time. With each executive session agenda item, time will be allowed to clear the boardroom and call the next presenter. We ask that the public please wait in the break room in order to keep the hallways clear until the executive session is finished. All right. The Board of Directors hereby reconvenes into open session at 12:27 p.m. And there is no resolution for us to consider. So at this time, I'll hear a motion to adjourn our meeting. So moved by Jen Henderson. All in favor, second by Director Savage. Any opposition?
Aye.
All right.
Some of you leave pretty early and don't eat lunch with us, but I'm telling you, today is a treat. Local Italian restaurant is serving lasagna and all kind of stuff that'll make it really hard for you to drive home after you eat. So if you want to sleep in the parking lot for a couple of hours, you're more than welcome to do that too. It's a safe and secure environment.
And a nice glass